Coons, what have y'all done for us lately? And if there's no answer, the only thing we owe them.
Hey, good evening. Welcome. Welcome all. Welcome everyone. uh, Hopefully we will have a very, very beneficial conversation. This is basically going to pick up from what we were discussing last week. And uh, basically, Sister Azima had explained to me in a personal conversation that we need to understand the time that we're in as melanated people in the season that we're going into, and being able to identify the moment and being able to embellish and take care of ourselves and get the best out of these moments. Um, what's up, Sister Azima?
Hello, everybody.
Uh,
Thank you for having me back.
absolutely, absolutely. How's everything going?
Uh, uh, Not bad. It's 1 degree here in the great city of St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, y'all got some of this cold weather too. It's
Oh, it snowed for us, and we got 8 to 10 inches, and then it went into freeze mode. So, snow doesn't melt then. But
well,
it
they
warmed up for 2 days, and those 2 days got up in the 40s on one day and 50 in the other. A lot of it melted, but only in areas where the sun was
yeah
radiating on. But we still have a lot of snow. It's still pretty. A lot of it is still white. It's just on one side of the street.
yeah
On
we
one
had
side.
got some bad weather over the weekend. At first they said 1 to 3 inches, then they was like 3 to 6, and then it was like 8 to 12. So
Okay.
as usual, most of the time when you know it's 8 to 12, you go outside, you start prepping, and
Right.
it was basically 1 to 3, but it definitely got extremely cold.
Right.
Uh, this morning
Right.
when I went to work, it was
Okay.
-2 degrees.
Oh, no, we're at one, and with the wind blowing, they say it's
Yeah,
a negative
yeah,
10. I don't know how they, but I'm inside.
yeah,
I'm
yeah. So
I'm
the funniest thing is it me for someone who I work in the elements most of the time.
uh-huh.
This was the first time since I've been at this job that we ever didn't work in the elements. And actually tomorrow I'll be out in it because tomorrow will be the same way before it starts to
Oh,
heat up.
okay.
Yeah. So what I was thinking about, because I know last night I kind of rushed you off the phone. I was tired.
You were tired. I got it. I understand.
And I was thinking about wanting to discuss the dynamic of something that I believe, like I always try to identify
Mhm.
understanding our, for lack of better words, for me calling you an elder, but
Mhm.
understanding to take from our elders who have been here longer than us,
Mhm.
and being able to translate you guys' experience
Mhm.
and how we should be navigating in our social dynamic of today's
Mhm.
world, you know,
Mhm.
and how we should be able to pass it on to the future generations.
Mhm.
And what I wanted to discuss, one of the topics I wanted to discuss was those relationships. And it seems to me, and it has seemed to me over the years of men and women in regards to relationship, black men and women, melanated men and women, are just so off balance with each other,
Mhm.
opposed to My grandparents' generation was just, it was different. Not saying they didn't have problems, because I know about problems that they had that they told me
Hmm.
in their older years. But it seems like it's even worse now, where we're not even, if you do get past the courting stage, the marriage may not even last 2 3 years, and it's like a bitter disdain for one another.
Hmm.
What do you think that's from, and do you share that sentiment? And how do you view things opposed to now to back then?
I think as Negroes, Black people here in America, we call ourselves African Americans. Until we can truly identify who we are, I mean, really be able to point back and say, not just my grandmother or grandfather came out of Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, California, to be able to say, I have a tribal connection to maybe Choctaw, Shawnee, Cahokia people, or I can definitely say I'm an Igbo member in Africa, or I'm a descendant of someone from the Caribbean islands. You're going to always be in a state of confusion. You have no attachment because everyone you are attaching to, you cannot ground yourself in their culture because you know nothing of their culture. We basically had created a culture here, good, bad, or indifferent. We had created that culture. It became more tribalistic. But even in that tribalism, we had some divine principles we dealt with. Um, the seven principles of the Nguzo Saba, unity, Kukuchaga, Umoja, Kukuchagalia, that type of thing. Unity, self determination, um, purpose, family, cooperative work responsibility, collective economics, and faith. And what has happened is because as information has continued, the cell phone is the best thing that's ever happened to us. As that came into our life, it replaced the dictionary and a lot of reference books because you could access it immediately. What has happened is that when we are accessing it with the knowledge and the culture, the technology, and everything of our counterpart, the white American. And so, whatever values they had, we began to mimic that. And therefore, there's such a disdain or a dislike or a severe disconnect between the feminine and the masculine in our people. And I think there's some things we need to do. We need to first identify who we are.
Mhm.
Even if that means you get a 23andMe or a DNA test and you can afford it, if you get it, or another family member gets it, it will pretty much break down how your family lineage is. Once you have that, then I suggest that you begin to define yourself by studying that information. Go and do a little history. You can do a little history on your Wikipedia, but if you have to go to the library, go back and use it. Go back and get some reference materials. Go back because all of our history did not begin in slavery. That's the key thing. And the other thing is that we didn't always dislike each other like we do now. We we consider ourselves Americans, but and there's no condemnation towards white people. They they control everything. Your economics, your education, your financial systems, they are entrenched in them. And so when you're mimicking them and your values are entirely different, it's a hard place to be. And so it does create a major disconnect, only because you don't know who you are. And you can't reach back and say, this is my culture, this is what we used to do. If I'm Nigerian, when we get married, Nigerians bring money and we shower you with money. We don't have a way to connect. The purpose of the elders was to be that bridge, to connect you from the slave, not that we wanted you to be in the slave culture, but whatever culture we built tribally during that period of slavery, because a lot of us didn't remember before that time, to connect you with what's going on now in the 21st century. And so we need to do the same thing. Once we identify who we really are, good evening, brown girl, um, it will allow us to redefine our culture. Then we can speak intelligently on who we are, what we are. Okay. And then it allows you to have a different perspective. Just because you are woke doesn't mean you are enlightened. And when you become enlightened, it means that you must take on the responsibility of being unifying. You can't be woke and being deceptive, deceiving, um, breaking things apart. You can't be destructive. You have to be constructive. And if you don't get along well with a particular person, there's a family member that you get along well with, and you're going to ask them to speak to the person you don't get along well with, and begin to bridge those parables, those gaps. Then you have Chagalia, self identification. I love what it says. I will define who I am. I will not let others speak and define who I am because I am not of them. So we have to be unified. We have to identify who we are, okay, and speak for ourselves. Then we have to come together with a purpose. What is your purpose? So when we're looking at where we are now in this culture and society, we are mimicking somebody we didn't want to mimic because
Mm.
they control the entire structure that we are under. And I think about that now. Think about it dearly. Your last people, Kamala, Joe Biden, what was their agenda? DEI, okay? Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Uh, Sister Azima froze you guys. So what we'll do is we'll discuss it when she comes back. We'll continue to discuss it. You guys in the chat, Vera Brown Girl Boston. I see your comments. Good evening. Anybody else that's watching or in the chat that would like to add a question that asks 6,000 in reference to this, just let me go. Let me know, and I'll ask her. Supporting gaming. How's everything going? Hold on. We're gonna do. We'll be back. Yeah.
Okay, so when you are mimicking the people who are in control of your educational system, your health system, your financial system, your family structure, all of the key components that make a society, then it creates a discontinuity because you can't identify. You could be friendly with them, but you really can't identify with every aspect of their social construct because we had our own. And we have always been a very spiritual group of people. I know you're tired of hearing me talk, but we vibrate to that frequency of the spirit and the soul. We've always been loving, but not necessarily meek. Okay, you can be loving without being meek. You can be humble without being a coward. Okay, so we have to stand 10 feet on that. That's the whenever you see those Egyptian statues and you see them standing there, with their right foot out and their hands down to the side, they are stumping down the enemy. And the enemy is not you or me, the enemy is ignorance. So just because you woke, you do not understand symbolisms. And because you do not understand symbolisms, all of a sudden they're demonic, they're demons, they're devil, and you talk of, and that goes right to talking about your celebrities when they give you this pyramid sign here. That has nothing to do. This is one part of the Merkaba or the Macabre. When you turn it upside down, that's the other part of it. You call it the Star of David, but it is really a vibrational cage that holds your spirit and your soul when you want to move around from dimension to dimension. So we must understand what these symbols represent and understand that they were here long before palm colored people came into control. Uh, and it's imperative that we do the first: unify, identify ourselves, have purpose. What is our purpose as a collective body of people? Okay. And I had to tell a lot of Black people, my family included, you will never end prejudice. You will never end wars. You will never end racism. You will never end homelessness or brutality because this is a learning environment. It's a school. And if people are coming here being born, some of them are coming here with the knowledge of knowing, I want to see what it's like to be a boxer or a fighter or a race car driver or a pilot. So there will be certain struggles that they must go through in this physical realm in order to achieve the level of ascension. Ascension doesn't mean you just die and go to heaven, because Earth, any planetary body, is heaven, Heaven, and it means a place, a shelter, a, um, a cave, a coven where you feel safe. The planet Earth is your heaven. Okay. Ascension means vibrating the pineal gland to a level of where you change your thinking. And when you change your thinking, it moves you, it physically moves your frequency so that people who come at you with things you no longer are interested in will never even see you. I mean, even though they're walking down the street and they see you head on, they will not recognize you because your frequency is not there. So then you have unity, you have self determination, identifying who you are, seriously knowing your culture. You have your purpose. And once you've directed your purpose, then you have to have collective work and responsibility. We've got to stop having someone else take care of us. Okay. Now, people are going to say, I'm retired, I'm receiving Social Security. The government is not taking care of me. The companies that I worked for and myself put aside a certain amount of money into a trust fund. Okay. I want you all to know that. So when they start talking about this, that, and the other, the only reason why they're worried about the fund is because it's like having a Christmas fund at Walmart, Kmart, Target. You go in and you put your money in. So let's say you end up putting in $200 and you earn $50 extra in that 12 months you had your money in there. What's the same thing with your retirement? They put it into an active fund that's out here negotiating, buying stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever it takes. As those stocks, bonds, and whatever mature, they must pay back into the fund. That's the interest. You're living off of the interest. Anything that you put away in your bank and don't touch, that's the principal. When you're living on your interest, you're not going to, even though they're giving you 100% of what's due you for your interest, it's not 100% of all of the interest from everybody. So what has happened is that Congress knew how to manipulate that interest, and they moved it around where they needed it and did this and did that. And that is why they're concerned that your trust fund won't be solvent in the future. And they want everybody to be working until they die. That's unrealistic. With your new president, they're looking to have ways in which you, as an individual, even in your later years, if you're able to earn money or have a little money set aside to invest that money and let that money work for you, and it can be added to the interest you're receiving from your Social Security. So, your collective work and responsibility aspect is one where we come together as a unified mindset. And in that unified mindset, we address certain things. Slavery was horrible. My grandfather, I love him to death. He has transitioned. So, granted, I wasn't born a slave, but I have seen and been, personally affected by people throwing water in my face, calling me, expletives, and then spitting on me. I know what that is like, but also understand I am not the only person. We, as melanated skinned people, we're not the only ones that had to experience it. What it made it bad for us is that they removed from us our knowledge of who we are. And in a state of confusion, everybody else speaks for you. You never get a chance to speak for
Mm.
yourself. So you must have unity. You must have a way to define who you are. Okay, that's what Kukuchagalia does. I'm speaking for myself. I don't need Mr. So and so on the corner to speak for me. I can speak for myself. You must have purpose. What drives us as a collective body of people? What are the key things we want out of this? To me, everybody wants reparations, but reparations means different things to different people. Okay. If you're not good at handling money, maybe you need to have free education as part of your reparation, or a home that you can live in, or other things, other tangible things that you feel that you can handle. If you're good with money, maybe we should give you money as part of the reparations. Okay. So we have to have our purpose. After purpose, we have to work together collectively. And I don't mean smiling in your face and stabbing you in the back like many of the black songs. Smiling faces tell lies, they don't tell the truth. We don't need to be that way. In humanity, it's going to be there anyway, but we don't need to add to it. Okay. Because when you're adding to that confusion, it separates male and female. And the thing that everyone has failed to understand is that the one, the absolute, by whatever name you wish to call that spiritual entity that speaks to you, that rocks your soul when you need it the most, is both masculine and feminine. Your role as male and female is to come to a harmonic balance. And when things are in balance, the there's nothing you cannot achieve. And that also means personal balance. Sometimes we carry a lot of anger and hate. And I always try to tell people, and you've heard your minister say that, forgive them. It's not that you're forgiving them. Forgive yourself for being angry. Forgive yourself for thinking, wow, they used me. I'm dumb. I didn't figure that out. Forgive yourself. Love yourself.
I
Once you
was
get, I'm
I
sorry.
was I was telling a good friend of mine. I just made me think of it when you said that. And
Hmm.
when I have a mentor, a couple mentors, right?
Hmm.
And I was telling my mentor, she called me yesterday, and I was watching the inauguration.
Hmm.
We disagree politically. We disagree on a lot of things. And she was like, "We're boycotting that." I'm like, "What do you mean we?" Like, who's boycott? And I kind of try to understand, like, and I know that we are not a monolith on a lot of issues, definitely politics. But my issue is a lot of our, it feels like we're in that maze where we're just doing the same thing. Like one of the brothers said yesterday during the show, we're on a hamster wheel. It's like we're just
Yeah.
doing the same thing over and over again. Um, some of us are, in my opinion, begging for a seat at the table. Some of us, like you said, like they use words like DEI, and it's like, okay, why are we falling for that? And we're nothing but coverage for other groups to get what they want, and then we've never gotten anything that we tangibly wanted. Like, what?
Because we don't know how to define who we are. That's the first thing, the most imperative thing. We must be unified and we must identify who we are. Not every black person in this room that has been in America all of their life. Their parents were here, their grandparents were slaves. Not all of them were from Africa. Now that we've been able to really look through it and start sifting it, about 92,000 of us came. I'm not saying that they didn't take millions of us, but a lot of us ended up in Spain, Morocco, Portugal. We ended up in the Caribbean islands from Africa, but only about 92,000 of them. What they did do was take what we considered the freedmen, and those would be your Chickasaw, your Blackfoot, your Crow, your Shawnees, all of them who were naturally melanated people, captured them, put them on boats, and sent them to the breaking colonies, Haiti, Jamaica. Break them in, bring them back, and say, now you are a slave. Okay. That was a horrific thing to do. And it damaged a lot of the indigenous people. But it never made them stop from standing tall and saying, when Shaka Khan said, I'm an Indian, and everybody went like, you're black, girl. Wake up, look at yourself in the mirror. She knew. And we were conditioned to say things like, you ain't African American? Just like we fight among ourselves because we want to believe Kamala Harris is African American. Kamala Harris is East Indian Brahmin. And you need to go and learn about the Brahmins. They are a very dangerous group of people.
So why? So let me ask you, why, in your opinion, why was it so hard for people to call her out? Not call her out, but just to identify she is who she is, right, wrong, or indifferent. And as they say, she's not us, or she's not who
Okay, so
people
let's
are. Okay,
let's
go ahead.
address that. You have black people in high places. I'm gonna just call them out. I got a degree. It's great.
Sister Azima froze again, you guys, in the chat. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Best way to support the channel is to like, share, subscribe. Get the likes up. Make sure you guys in the comments. Let's interact. Got any questions for Sister Azima? In regards to what we talking about, anything, this will be the greatest time to ask those questions, put those questions up. So when she does come back, I'll be able to present those questions to her. In the meantime, I'll put the break stuff up, and we'll join back when she comes back on.
Okay, so I know you all have heard of the Skull and Bones, and if you haven't, that was a secret society that many of Barack Obama, a lot of them in the Ivy League schools, when they attended, um, most of your presidents came through the Skull and Bone.
Hmm.
So you had the same thing when it came to a very large number of us. Now think about this. Let me put all this in perspective. Quote unquote, we're supposed to have 8 billion people on this planet. When you go and look at all of the statistics, and I have done that, palm colored people or white people make up 888 million people. So I bumped it up to a billion. So you have 8 billion, 8 billion that look like you. You have 1 billion that look like palm colored people or white people as we define them. What is scary about that? They are outnumbered 7 to 1, but they're very good at manipulating how you think because they were able to go back. All this time you're thinking we're having wars in all these places, but one thing Hitler did do when he traveled the world, he went to all of these archaeological places because he wanted that information on how to get in here and change the frequency of your pineal gland. And you all laugh about it, but it is true. It is the psychology. He changes your psychosis of how you think. And in doing so, you become blind. There's that adage in the Bible. I don't know it, but I remember hearing this. Um, I remember one of these great men um, put put spit on a man's eyes. So let me see if I can paraphrase it. This person was afraid of all of these men when it went into battle. And I'm, for lack of a better word, somebody's going to quote me and correct me, but I'm just going to say, Jesus said, how do you see them? He says, I see these men as trees. So when he put the spittle on his eyes to remove the ignorance, he said, how do you see them now? I see the men as men. So when the white people, good, bad, or indifferent, when you're bonding together, they clan together. They're going to clan together, even if they don't like each other, to clan against the majority. And they're going to do things, denigrate you, rape your women, kill your children in front of you. It is a humbling and angering thing. You fight to the death. When you kill off the old and only keep the children don't have a history to hang on to. Now you give them your version of what you want their history to be. And like I said before, we weren't African Americans until Jesse Jackson said so. And Jesse Jackson, oh, Adam Clayton Powell. These were the people we looked at because still the vast majority of us were trying to become literate, educated, the ability to read and write one language, the English language. And in doing so, we looked up to these Black people that had struggled and what we consider arrived in society. And they would determine how things would be. Rosa Parks wasn't the Rosa Parks was your image maker for the whole bus boycott. But I don't remember the young lady's name, but she was 16 or 17 years old. And she got on a bus, not in Alabama, I think it was Louisiana, and she defied them because there was no place for her to sit. She was tired, her baby was sick, she needed to sit down to do something, and she got arrested, and a lot went on with that. She was not the image they wanted to present on television because television was new. And the image they wanted to present was us being straight laced.
Claudette Calvin.
Huh?
Claudette Colvin.
Thank you. Um, Claudette Colvin. So they wanted us to be straight laced, very humble, very spiritual people. Um, the first group of Black men that came to her aid, they were not, they would learn it, but they were street. They talk street, and they didn't want that. You're not going to be on television talking street, no matter how much education you have. So that is where we began to create the boule.
So that I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay, I mean the boule was there before
I'm
then, but
I'm I'm
I mean
glad
it
you brought that up
really
because
okay.
you gave me an aspect of history where I can ask you and you bring home a point. Is this, let me ask you, is that where I could say they were too busy instead of getting something done, which was going to get done, they should have stood by the sister regardless of trying to be palatable
Hmm.
to white society.
Yes, we were
Is
trying
this
to.
is this is this where we continue going wrong with
Yes, yes, yes.
okay.
I say yes. May not be what everybody else say. I say yes because 15 years ago, I ran into, um, 15, no, 25 years ago. I had come home to St. Louis. My parents were ill, and I went to an event. And we're also color struck. That's another thing. We are color struck. So I had gone to an event, and there were a lot of, I mean, a lot of black men who drove here from Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, St. Louis. They were meeting with, law enforcement. And of course, you had, many of your black politicians there and many of your brothers from the fraternities there. They wanted to be the voice of all of these other people. And somehow I ended up at the microphone, and, they allowed me to speak. And I said, I want to see term limits on politicians. And nobody said, this, we're not talking about that. I said, yes, you are. Because the only way you can change your police system, because your police department embodies the policies of your politicians, put term limits on them. Okay. The next thing I'd like to see something similar to an SR 22. If you have a long standing history of not having insurance, driving while drunk, things like that, that make you dangerous on the road, instead of insuring your car, they have to put insurance on you. And it's really a bond. And you got to come up with the down payment of the bond, and then you make payments on until you get to a certain level of what the bond is worth. Police officers should have that. Because many of the police officers, when I was growing up, they were Joe's daughter, son, and Mickey's son, Ricky's son, you know, Clem's son. They had no training in law enforcement whatsoever. Now police officers are going, and they are learning both criminal law and constitutional law.
So, so let me ask you, right?
Mhm.
And I know this conversation may be going a little bit left for some people in the chat, and I apologize. But like I said, if you guys have any questions for Sister Azima, this would be the best time to ask the questions so we could get them in while we have the time. Um, when okay, knowing that situation with Claudette Colvin, NAACP secretary was Rosa Parks, we know. Okay, when did our legitimate trauma, our legitimate fight for justice, become such a profitable business?
When we allowed the Jewish people to help us, it became more business than it did,
Justice.
justice. Because justice comes from the word of ma'at. Ma'at means just, Just, this, This. And she was not blind. And that's why she had the scale. She had to weigh your heart on the scale. The heart, your heart chakra. And they take your heart out. But it is really this up here, the pineal gland. You can't see the pineal gland. It's smaller than a pea. So they use the heart. So they put the heart on the scale, and they put a feather. Why the feather? Because when you are in harmony with yourself, It doesn't mean that you don't get angry. And it doesn't mean that you don't serve justice, but you don't do it to be narcissistic. You don't do it to be brutal or mean. You do it to teach a lesson. And you can stand on that. You don't have to fumble around and look up in the sky and go, I don't know. You don't have to defend your position when you stand firm on who you are, because you know you're not going to tolerate certain things and you don't have to pretend to be something different. And so it still goes on because we see the fighting in Palestine. We see the Hebrew Israelites. I mean, they're the ones that were here. I mean, the whole planet was melanated until the Anunnaki came, and they didn't. They did not make people. They modified us. Okay, and so no one talks about that. There are 81 books in the Bible, but you only get 66. What happened to the other ones? Why is it that there's only one real religion in the world? It's Judeo Christian. You think Christianity is Catholicism. No, the Cathars were a small group of people who knew that the Bible, as we know it, as we identify it, only means bibliography of a particular group of people. And the Cathars were like, we can't adhere to that because it's not talking about everything. Everything in that book is only patrilineal. Everything in there is patrilineal. Please explain to me, how can the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost produce a child? How
So,
can two men make a baby? How can two women make a baby?
so the reason why I asked you that question,
Mhm.
not to take away from your statement you just said, and it doesn't make what we would consider the most common of sense.
Mhm.
Um, the reason why I asked you that is because I know you had been, advising me before about knowing what happened, knowing the trauma that our people face, definitely those indigenous to this country,
Mhm.
and and understanding who you are, understanding your history,
Mhm.
but not allowing the victimization of every situation
Mhm.
as using that as I'm a victim. I'm a victim.
Right.
It's my fault. Randy said something yesterday during our show, and he said a lot of people don't know the difference nowadays between racism and adversity.
Yes, they don't. They Racism originally was. All right, let's walk backwards for a second. When horse racing was the thing among the wealthy, your jockey was always a pygmy black person.
Mhm.
He knew that horse. He knew that buggy. He could get in there, ride that bad boy, and that was your racism. He's riding. It's a race. All right. The first person that makes it across the line. Okay. We have taken that. Remember, I told you about words, taking things out of context. Remember, we talked about faggot. It used to be a bundle of sticks, and now, it's whatever they decided to be. And that is
Mhm.
my concern with a digital dictionary. I can change it tomorrow and you would never know because you don't do reference work. So all of this goes back to, we're going to talk about the PMI in a minute. All of this goes back to your PMI. Okay. It goes back to the PMI because, one, you must know who you are. All the positive
Y'all know Sister Azim was about to go into her bag. She cooking right now, y'all. She's definitely cooking. Like I said, if you guys got any questions, please present them so we could get it. We could get this information out of Sister Azima. She's giving us a lot of hikmah and wisdom right now, and this is important. Um, I'm one of the people that really honor and respect our elders, and it's important for us to being able to navigate through this society. Excuse me, I know you was in the process of really cooking, as the young people say.
Oh, well, what I'm saying is that it goes back to a lot of things. It goes back to the Boule. The Boule have been coming up, they were up and coming for a long time. And this is why it's important that we need to develop within our own people our department of archaeology and anthropology and let them go back and research. Okay, to reach back and know. Then then come out and meet with us. Come to the high schools and talk. If you notice, our gatekeepers look like us. It benefits them to keep the mass majority of us as a victim because
Why?
they
Why?
get grant money, they get funding. And as long as you're a victim, you can write grants and get money.
So they're, and I'm not being naive when I ask these questions. I'm just so they would rather serve us up for slaughter over and over and over again, generation after generation, just to keep their lofty positions.
Yes, yes. I mean, don't pretend. You have Roland Martin who talks crazy, but let's talk about the role he played with Hillary Clinton and why he's no longer, with One News because he gave her the questions when it came time for her to do the debate. Let's talk about even Joe Biden, which really torques my jaw because Joe Biden loved Strom Thurmond.
I got into it today
Okay, he
with a
loved him.
well, I got into it today, Sister Azim, with a very close friend of mine,
Mhm.
and he feel as though that Joe Biden, because I'm upset about the pardon of Fauci, knowing Anthony Fauci's history.
Yeah, but you
Um,
can get him on the state level. You ain't
then
got to go to
then
the federal government.
then I addressed,
Hmm.
all the history and what Crime Bill Joe and segregationists did, and how everything that a lot of stuff that Joe Biden like directly affected the black community. And
Because he,
he and my friend, I
hmm
will say this guy is a friend.
hmm
Like he talked about all these judges this guy just appointed, and I said, this man cannot be forgiven for all the harm he caused us.
hmm
Like, and for me, I'm
hmm
not gonna lie, I'm taken aback of how easy,
hmm
because he got the vice presidency, and basically he got the vice presidency because they would never put Obama in there. Them Southern people would have never accepted Obama if it wasn't Biden on the ticket. And then he became the president, and how you try not to tell people about political affiliation, but this man clearly has been an enemy to the black community for the last 40, 50 years.
Okay, so let's not even talk about his role with the black community. Let's talk about his role when he stood there at CBS News and said he graduated top of his class, had three offers to colleges. Well, when they went and fact checked him, they found out that out of 78 students that graduated, he was number 74. He only got half of a scholarship and he couldn't keep his grades up. Let's also talk about the fact that I knew this man was skewed because his wife, Jill, That was his mistress and babysitter when his first wife died and his first child. He had a daughter and two sons from his first wife. Jill was the babysitter. First wife died in an automobile accident. Go look it up. You will see him standing there between the two gurneys telling them, go ahead and swear me in so I can be a senator. What kind of everything that I've seen about him made me step back. When his son, his oldest son, had brain tumors, died from them, Hunter divorced his wife of 18 years and married his brother's wife, the one that died, and was intimate with his niece. And when the news media brought it to Jill and Joe, they said, he just loves her, and we love and support her. She sued him badly, the sister in law. His wife sued him badly. He is unscrupulous. He is a pathological liar. Everybody knew that. But because the great Southern realm wanted to keep him in office, and he wasn't even a representative from the South, he was from Delaware. You know where the Federal Reserve Bank was supposed to be, which was neither federal or reserved bank. It's a privately held bank known as the Bank of Delaware. So if you do not know the history of the Corporation of America, you're in for a rude awakening.
So just I was saying, man, I I'm one of them type of people. I'm always willing to learn. I have no problem with education. I believe learning stops when you're no longer here.
Correct.
And for me, when you're telling me this as someone who's been here longer than me, and you're telling me, Quentin, all you got to do is Google it, look it up. It's not that hard to find.
It
And
is.
then even with the advent of C-SPAN,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up my grandparents kept C-SPAN on TV, so I used to see him on that house floor with
Mm-hmm.
his racial views and racial voting
Very
record.
prejudiced. Very
Yeah.
prejudiced. Mm-hmm.
So how are we? And I know sometimes you don't want to tell people who to align themselves politically because I'll just say that the Democratic Party has worked a major psyop on black people with thinking that they have our best interests at heart.
Okay, so
Not
let me
saying
yes,
not saying the Republican Party does as well, but why do we continue going down that train?
because we have forgotten that we helped build the Republican Party. The Dixiecrats were your plantation owners, later known as the Democratic Party. We built the Republican Party for the people. When Trump took office, and I don't think a lot of people listened, when Biden took office and they were outside and he was sworn in, he wasn't sworn in on a Holy Bible. He brought his own. When they talk that talk, they say, for the democracy of America, we are a republic. Today, they asked Trump if he would adhere to the laws of the Constitution, not the democracy. That's where we need to be. The Constitution came from the indigenous population of these people, which we want to call Indians, but the indigenous population of these people. How many of you know that the state of California was named after a group of women called the Califas? They're known as your Amazons. You don't know that, do you? What they have done is that they have bamboozled you. They made sure that they killed off all of the um, sages, the elders who had knowledge, and let that 18, 19, 20-year old who was learning become your new leader. And you used fear to keep them in place. And for a long time, many of us had grandmothers and grandfathers who had a picture of Jesus Christ. Please tell me he was white. So if Jesus, God's son, is white, what do you psychologically do when you see white people?
You reverence it.
Yes. So you're going to do that. You're going to humble yourself instead of going within and knowing that you have power. And then they tell you stuff like voodoo, hoodoo, witchcraft, casting spells. Every time you open your mouth, you're casting a spell. It is how you put the words together and the letters in the words on how you enunciate them. Did you hear me? Enunciate. See how I did that? Enunciate. So how you speak those words out is how it impacts people. That is why ministers, black ministers, were taught to do a minstrel show. That's what minstrel show means. They dance across the stage. They go on. We're going to do this. Okay. You are now caught into the spell of their words. Did you know there was a slave Bible?
Mm.
There's a lot of things out here you're not aware of. You have to know. But because they tell you all the time, just put it between a book black folks won't read. And I laugh because there were a lot of black folks that worked for NASA. Lots of us. Okay? And you go to what, Hidden Figures, and you see all those women in there calculating math. I guess that makes us stupid, right? But how about my father built a paper bag machine so women wouldn't get their fingers cut off when they're in there folding that bag in that hot glue. Okay. Um, there's so many things. The soaker gun, GPS, open heart surgery. Come on now. And if you don't want to go right here, go back. The door knocker, a door, a house, a grid, walls, a roof. There's not much that we haven't had our hands in. Melanated skin people. But just like with Kamala, her mother being of Brahmin caste, and in India, they have a caste system. The darker you are, you become an untouchable. Your role is to take care of the dead. We had colorism over here. I remember I love my husband dearly. He was 6'5", and he was chocolate. I mean, dark chocolate. I loved him. But he and I had this major disagreement, and I didn't even want the books, but I still have. The Color of Men. My God, that book sent me through a tizzy. Because on the front of the book, you had black men in every color. And then they went from octroon to slave. And I was like, are you kidding me? But that's what they do. And that was how the system was set up. Everybody thinks Catherine the Great was a black woman. She gave Peter the only natural son he could have. All the rest of his sons were incest from niece, nephew, and sister. From niece, sister, and a cousin. She was a black woman from Africa who gave him a child. Bach, Beethoven, they were mulattoes. Chopin. They don't talk about that. They couldn't perform in public because they were this color. Their music is not classical music. Their music is their music of anger that they couldn't perform in public.
Mm.
Okay. What do you know about history? Do you know women were never allowed to wear heels? Only men could wear heels. That was for 300 years. The Renaissance period is not where we are reinventing anything. It is when the Moors came over and taught them how to be clean, taught them how to bathe, taught them how to clean their food.
Uh, Guys, you know what time it is. Sister Azima froze. I told you when she start cooking, it start. Um, Remember, like, share, subscribe. Black Laren, I see you in the chat. We'll, you know, keep taking these breaks until she come back. Hold on.
Okay, so I don't know.
Rodney said you out here cooking, huh?
Thank you. Um, I don't know if you've ever heard this adage, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So when this group of people clan together, they didn't have to have their common goal was to rule, and that was their common goal. And they could, because before we had internet and cell phones, you know, think of Leopold from Belgium, the stuff he did to people, cut their hands off. Okay, you have to realize that these people, they trick you into situations. Okay, Vietnam came and they told us they were out there bombing our ships in the Gulf of Tonkin, and that was not true at all. France was over there getting rubber from the rubber trees, and the women and men weren't working fast enough. And they had already done some unscrupulous things, tying pregnant women to the trees, cutting the trees, and ripping them apart. It was horrible, just horrible things. I remember many black men, including my first husband, who said that when he ran up on the Vietnamese, who were short like pygmies and black as night, they would whisper and tell them, "This ain't your fight, black man. This ain't your fight, black man." And a lot of them would step back because they would tell them, "Step over here, step over there." And then they would, do their due, because it wasn't black men coming over there doing those horrible things to their people. So we must know, getting back to the 7 principles of the Nguzo Saba, I don't want you to take that lightly, because that is where your life is. It deals with the divine principles of Ma'at. You got the 10 commandments from the 42 laws of Ma'at. Okay, there is 142 actions of divinity that is talked about in the ancient Egyptian or Kemetic texts. We don't know anything about that. You don't know the history of math and science came from you. Okay, let's talk about this. Indinkras. I want y'all to look up the Indinkra symbols. Okay, it's got that square tooth. It's got the diamond. Okay, if you do coding, 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 for computers. The Adinkra symbols are the coding that you use for your computer. So your computer brain is wrapped on the signals and symbols of your people. Do you know that? No, of course not. So we must go back to our Nguzo Saba 7 principles. And don't let them tell you it's because Maulana Rangaranga thought about it. These are key 7 principles you can put in your life every single day under your PMI. Being unified, speaking for yourself, having purpose, collective work and responsibility, collective economics, okay, family, and then faith. There's nothing wrong if your church and let me tell you, the meaning of church from the Greeks, the European Greeks, not the Black Greeks, or maybe from the Black Greeks. I cannot speak. I haven't done enough research on that. It comes from the word ecclesia. Ecclesia means to call you out. Bring the people outside so they can assemble out in the open. The word, I'll spell the word Ekklesia. Ek means to exit or to separate. Kaleo means to beckon, to behold to the Lord or the ruler or a king. So when you're in church, who rules the church? Your pastor, your deacons. They bring you only patrilineal energy because only patrilineal energy can create and maintain physical form. This is physical form. Glasses, clothing. Masculine energy can produce that. The concepts of how to get there is feminine energy.
Mm.
That is why we must be united in what we do. It brings about balance and harmony. When you have balance and harmony, you're not fighting amongst. This stuff that you see here is because these people did not know how to be in harmony with each other. We were on this planet millions of years before we see the current folks that are here and the system they have put in place globally. And that's why it's diminishing, because the connection, we are now learning to connect. We're all running around talking about we woke, but we're not enlightened. And we haven't taken the time to do these 7 principles. So go look up the Nguzo Saba, get those 7 principles. You don't even have to learn how to say them in their uh, comedic form. Umoja, Kukachagalia, and Mbili. We don't have to. But I want you to know why they are there. And bring that into your life internally. The PMI was to help you better understand who you are.
Mm.
If you don't know your weaknesses, and I don't mean because I drink or smoke, or it's even if it means that when I get very angry, I go to the extreme, or I do like gossip. All of those are negative aspects. We call them diminished qualities. It's just like on a musical scale. You got dominant and you have diminished. When you put them together, they're beautiful. When you hear Black people sing a cappella without music, the harmony is off the chain. And it makes you, it allows you to emote.
You can
What they
feel
have
that.
done is removed your ability to emote.
You can feel that. It's in your, as they say, it's in your soul.
Right.
It's that vibration that
Right.
you
It's
always
the
talk about.
literally. And I'm saying that because our planet vibrates at 7.83 hertz. Your pineal gland vibrates at that when you are in your state of balance and harmony. When you're out of that state of balance and harmony, your acidic levels go to 10, 12, 15, 39, and you're like, oh, I'm working it, but you got gout. You got this, lupus. You end up with
Don't be, don't be. That's a shot.
diabetes.
That's a shot. I used to suffer from gout,
Okay, but I'm
and
saying
believe it or not, what's
mhm,
funny is I stopped taking the medication, and my eating habits really didn't change.
no, because the medication is for what? It medicates you.
Yeah.
It puts you in a stupor, not psychologically, but it slows the body's rhythm down.
Hmm.
And when your body's rhythm is slowed down, you become highly acidic. That's the whole purpose of being in balance. In balance. You are balancing the left and right brain. When you balance the left and right brain, you can speak multiple languages and it'll be second nature.
Mm.
There are so many things that you can do. You will see things clearly, like the song, Now That the Rain's Gone, I Can See Clearly. You will literally see things clearly. There will be no fog. People cannot come and talk rhetoric, rhetorical information, and make you think they're intelligent. And there's no such thing as intelligence. There's your imagination.
Yeah.
My mother could take a 10-pound bag of flour, and that's when Pillsbury started making the flour sacks pretty. And she made clothes for us: shirts, vests, pants, jackets. I was dressed to the nines. Had my little gloves, my little hat on my head, and my little purse my mother made. We are creative. The purpose of life is to create. Why? So that the soul and the spirit has a place to come and learn. You can't learn just being ether, just air. So you have to have physical form. That was the role of patrilineal energy, the role of the man. You
Hmm.
marry that man and you say, baby, I want a house. I remember when we get married back in my day, and there'll be a vacant house on the street. Miss 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 Harris married Mr. Cook. Now Mr. Cook wasn't good at a lot of things, but he could finish a job. He'd go out and get his buddies, fix that house up, and she had a home. Okay? We equate home with wealth. Your wealth is your spiritual connection to self. It has nothing to do with tangible objects, because tangible objects come and they go.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you have a strong sense of who you are, self determination, Kugachagalia, okay? Nia, your purpose, Kuumba, collective work and responsibility, Kuna, collective economics, okay? Imani, faith, family. There's nothing you can't do. And there was never a time when in our communities the wealthy lived next door to the poor. We did not segregate ourselves. There was no need to do that because I didn't have to worry about whether or not the poor man next door was going to kill me for my wealth. That is the psychosis we see of a ruling class of people who consider themselves white. That is their problem and their ethos, and we're carrying it subconsciously. So we do their things. We got OnlyFans, and the sisters go in there and they talk crazy. You got black men running around being narcissistic and calling a woman a bitch, but they don't even know what a bitch is. A bitch is any female animal that can produce a living calf, a cow. That's a bitch. And you don't even know that. You call each other MS, but you don't know the history behind that name. And those were the young men, ages 12 through 22, who they would blindfold and take into a room, and their whole purpose was to breed. And they would make them breed with their mother or their sister or a cousin, a niece, or an aunt. And right in the middle of copulation, they would take off the mask or the covering over their eyes. And now you're fucking your mother. And we throw that word around. We have allowed other people to speak for us and denigrate us, and we look at that as some badge of honor.
Wow. Sister Azima froze again, you guys. We're going to close out when she comes back, but man, that was something, right? That was something. Well,
Okay, so I know we need to wrap up, but for all of you all who have done the PMI for yourself, that is why it's imperative. Once you know who you are, that's the only way you can begin to reach out and help others. I could not sit here and talk like this if I hadn't done my own personal work. And it's an ongoing process. Learning is ongoing. The only thing in life that's a constant is change. And if you don't have the ability to change, then you become very rigid, and what then you lose sight of your purpose. Okay. We have been through a lot. But even in being through a lot, we're here. I am the byproduct of my mother and father, their parents, okay, and their parents' parents. And the five daughters that I have is a byproduct of me and my husband and my first husband. But what I'm speaking to you is what I told them. And people used to look at me, black folks, why you do that? I said, because I want my daughters to find men that remind me of my husband, my second husband. He was my friend because I knew how to be a friend to him. We don't even know how to be friends to ourselves. And we don't know how to define ourselves. So with your PMI, I need you to look at it for 30 days. At the end of that 30 days, I want you to take it down and really, you don't have to pull it up and look at it every single day. Put it in a place where every time you walk past it, it'll be on a calendar. And then at the end of 30 days, you're going to take it down and you're going to look in your plus section. Anything in that plus section you need to put in minus or interesting, put it in there. Anything in minus that you need to put in plus or interesting, put it there. Anything in the interesting column, put it in the minus and the plus column. Put it back where you had it before. At the end of 60 days, I want you to take it down, which is 2 months. And I want you to go through it again. Anything in your plus column that you don't need, you've looked at it and gone through it and you're like, that's not even me anymore. Scratch it off. Get rid of it. Anything in the minus column, you go like, well, I don't even think like that anymore. Get rid of it. Anything in your interesting column, you do the same thing. Put it back up. At the end of 90 days, you're going to take it down and look at it and read it out loud to yourself, even if you have to read it out loud in front of a mirror or on your cell phone. Because now you have defined who you are. And now you're going to do the work that's necessary to bring people that are like you into your inner circle to make yourself whole. And you won't have to use external things like the Boule or the Skull and Bones or this organization over here, the NAACP or the Urban League, because you now can get together with people in your neighborhood or uh, friends that you know across your state or in states that are joined where you live that aren't too far from your city, maybe touching your city, and you can develop projects, programs, and get things done. If you got a friend that's a farmer, you can take your money and buy a box of groceries from him, and at least you know there's no pesticides on it. It'll be healthier for you to eat. You will also learn how to eat differently. The That is why I'm very glad that Robert F. Kennedy will be over the health, because they've already said they have to change the food pyramid because it's not geared for anybody to eat it except animals. It's to fat the animals. Most people don't realize that.
Why
Your
does
body, huh?
why does it take this environmental lawyer to be in a position for us to really take a look at what the hell we've been eating?
Because we had been in the realm of Pisces, and everybody said, "Oh, that was in the time of Jesus Christ." No, go and study Pisces. They're saying it's all about the fish. No, it's not. It's about the fact that you are moving against your own best interests. That's what happens with Pisces. Pisces, Pisces brings about destruction so that when you get to Aquarius, you can become enlightened and that you'll be able to take your knowledge and move things forward for the next 10,000 years.
Hmm.
It'll also teach you not to always align yourselves with unions and political parties, because political parties are nothing more than organizations, agencies, and entities that came together and developed a policy and then wrote the policy and then tried to enact it into law. You live under constitutional law, the divine laws of life.
Well, well, you guys in the chat, we appreciate you guys for joining us this week. Hopefully, we will definitely be back next week. I think I got hopefully me and Sister Azima are getting back into a real rhythm, and we really like having our. I will personally tell you guys, these are my personal conversations with her, and we're sharing them with everybody else. And I appreciate her taking out the time and the effort to, I don't like to say advise, to counsel us and share life experiences with us each and every week. So with that, remember the best way to support the channel is to like, share, and subscribe. Until next week, dear Brown Girl Boss, I got to get you on the show with Sister Azima.
Yes, please.
Yeah, she, me and Brown Girl Boston were very, very, very close. And I'll tell you, Sister Azima, it's the energy.
Mm,
She's an amazing young lady. And
wonderful.
I met her some years ago, and it is literally like I've known her all my life.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing. That's a very
Yeah, she's very, very, very dear to me. And I wish her nothing but the best. Look at her talking about, oh, thank you. What's
you.
funny, and I'll tell Sister Azima a quick secret about you, Drea. I was messing with her and telling her she should go back to school and get her doctorate. And the
Mm-hmm.
facial expression she gave me was like, no, I'm not. And
Mm-hmm.
she had some things in her personal life she wanted to do, and
Mm-hmm.
they're actually coming into fruition as we speak. And
Oh,
hopefully
that's
we'll have them two on the show together. You guys in the chat.
oh,
You
that's
guys remember Professor Drea, Brown Girl Boss, and some of y'all that have been with watching the channel for a while. She's been on this channel. We talked about food deserts before.
yeah.
Professor Drea is a graduate of Tuskegee University, as well as she was a associate professor there as well. So she's grew up in the Northeast, but she made her roots back down to Alabama, and hopefully we'll have her on the show. But with Sister Azima. So until then, until next time, you guys. Next Tuesday, hopefully same time. Like I said, you
Same
could always email me at
Yes.
ltalk5600. And if you have any questions that you want to present to Sister Azima ahead of time, or some topics that you would like her to discuss as an elder, forward it. And she's willing to talk about any and everything. She's here. This is her way of giving back. Like she said, she has 5 daughters from birth, but she has many children.
Yes.
So you guys take care. And until then, we'll see you.
What have you done for me lately? It's Coons. What have y'all done for us lately? And if there's no answer, the only thing we owe them